What's up guys, and welcome back to MoAn Inc. If you happen to be new here, well then, hello. My name is Erica and it is a joy to have you joining us today on the channel. Because for today's video, we are going to be diving into a summary of the Persians by Aeschylus. Now before we can get into that, please do not forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so that you know every single time I post in the future. And now that you have so kindly joined this little nerdy community on this corner of the internet, let's get into today's video. Just as a disclaimer, as I always say in these videos, these are intended as summaries. So therefore, we will not be getting into all of the nitty-gritty detail, but certainly this will be more detailed than the 5-minute videos that you see that currently are very popular on YouTube. Okay, so we're somewhere in the middle. I want to make this incredibly clear just because there's always comments of people saying, you missed this, you missed this. That's the intention. I always want you guys to be reading along with these videos, and so therefore I intentionally leave out quite a bit of detail. One, because you might as well watch the play, right? If you're gonna be watching this and it's the exact same length as the play, you might as well go and pay some actual actors to go and do it well and not just see me ramble off in front of my camera. But also because it is so important that you guys actually engage with the ancient texts, and if you can, the ancient languages, because it's so beautiful and it is so incredible. Like the playwriting of Aeschylus is so special and so incredible that I always want to encourage you guys to do that along with these videos. So I do just want to let you guys know that at the start of this video, but this should help you move your way through the play. That's, again, the point. Now, in saying all of that, the Persians is a little bit different because we are now in uncharted geographical locations, and I say uncharted for this channel in particular, right? I'm not somebody that normally does a lot of Persia content, but this play, despite being written by a Greek, is set in Susa, which is the capital of Persia during this period. Now on stage, before anyone comes on, you guys should probably know what it looks like, because sometimes these settings are very important. You guys know from Prometheus Bound, all of that sort of stuff, the staging is important. And in this play in particular, in the background, we have a building that has some steps leading up to it. And at the front of the stage, so I think that's downstage if I'm not mistaken, but that has a mound representing the tomb of Darius. If you guys read that as Darius, well, it's Darius apparently, Lloyd Llewellyn-Jones told me. Anyways, that's what's downstage, right? Is a representation of the tomb of Darius. And as you see this empty stage, you know, as the audience are letting in the setting of Susa, we're now in Persia, we're going to be dealing with the Persians themselves and the aftermath of the Persian War. We have the chorus filter on stage. The chorus in this play are made up of the old men of Persia. And they open up their choral ode by letting us know that the reason why they've stayed in Persia is because they are so old, right? So they're clarifying why they were not part of the war, this great Persian war against Greece, and they are home because they would have literally been a hindrance if they had gone. They also clarify this by saying that Xerxes, who's Darius' son, has given them the job, technically, of guarding the city. Right, that's just like a nice way of saying you're too old to come. Basically, you've got to stay here. And they say, well, Xerxes told us that we were to safeguard the city. However, they express to us in this ode how difficult it's been because the army left and they have had no word of what's happened, right? So they don't know of the fate of Persia. They don't know the fate of the army, of all of their sons, of all of their grandsons. You know, all of their family members are out fighting. And that's what we open with. This stress of family, the stress of knowing the people, you know, they tell us how these men left, some on horseback, some by ship, some by foot. They all walked towards Greece, they all walked that way, or they, you know, got on their horses and they trotted away, galloped away, or whatever it happens to be. And as they're doing this, they list off a number of names. So they tell us of these great leaders and these great commanders. And of course, it all comes back to, you know, really making these Persians, really making these men something that the audience can remember. This isn't just an army fighting an army. These are people, these are sons, these are husbands, you know. These people have children, these people have parents, you know. That's the purpose of this choral ode. And singing about how difficult it is when those people who are not just part of this bulky army, people who are people, the pain that comes with those who are left behind when they don't know what they are expecting. They don't know if they're expecting a win. They don't know if they're expecting a defeat. They've heard absolutely nothing, and the pain that comes with that. Which I'm not going to get into the analysis of this play, but is incredibly, incredibly important for multiple analytical reasons. One, that it's the Persians who are doing this and not the Greeks. So we're really empathizing with the quote-unquote enemy in this whole war. And also something that a lot of, obviously, the Greeks who were sitting in the audience would have been able to relate to, right? It's a really beautiful moment of having the Greeks really relate to the Persians through this choral ode of like, yeah, even though the Greeks fought the Persians, what we can all relate to is this idea of our husbands, our sons, our family members, the people that we know, the neighbors down the street, going off and fighting this, and the unknown, right? It's so, the analysis of this play is so beautiful, but not the point of this video. We're here for a summary. One of my favorite lines in this whole opening choral ode, which I had to write down, is actually, Zeus's great heart is bled empty of men, which is lines 155 to 156, which again is just a really, so heart-wrenching. And this is just the opening. This is just the opening, guys. When the general ode has come to an end, the chorus leader addresses the entire chorus and tells them that they need to have a very important discussion. He initially asked the chorus how, and if they happen to know how Xerxes is faring in the war. And before the chorus can really answer, they can get into a discussion, we see Atossa enter the stage. Now she comes on in a chariot, and the chorus leader actually interrupts the conversation to tell all the chorus to watch her coming on, right? Because Atossa's a very, very important woman. So when she shows up, the chorus stop and they all salute her to be respectful. Now all the chorus do, what they should do, which is that they get down on their knees and they really make Atossa, welcome, and they treat her very respectably. And the chorus leader does ask her what she's doing there, to which Atossa explains that it's actually because of them, right? The only reason why she has left her room, where Darius used to sleep as well, is specifically because of the people. She needs to hear some things from the people, and she really importantly needs some advice from her subjects, from her people, from the Persians. And the chorus obviously reply and say that they will help wherever and however they can. This gives Atossa permission to really divulge us, the audience, and the Persian people, in the Persian old men anyways, in the dreams that she's had, in her anxieties, in her fears, right? She knows that her son, Xerxes, I didn't properly explain who Atossa was. So Atossa is the mother of Xerxes. She had the child with Darius, and so therefore that's why, she's a very important woman. Why didn't I say that like 3 minutes ago? Who the fuck knows? But that's who she is, right? So when she's saying her anxieties and when she's really expressing this, the chorus want to listen, because she stresses that even though she knows her son has moved in to go and lead the armies, to lead them into Greece, to hopefully make this land Persian, but also his, she's had some really terrifying dreams about this. And now in the ancient world, for you guys who have just tuned in for this episode, you might not know the ancient context. Dreams are taken very, very importantly. Okay, they are taken very seriously. This is not something where it's like, oh, I had a weird dream where I was flying or whatever it was. The ancients did not view dreams this way. This was something that they really read into. Okay, so Atossa having multiple dreams is of importance. The most important dream that she stresses to the audience and to the chorus is actually the one that she had last night. She dreamed of two really beautiful women. Okay, so she stresses that one was Persian and one was Greek. And when they kind of came into view in her dream, they were super tall, super beautiful. They were dressed in these beautiful garments, and they were just flawless. These two women tell her that they were actually born of the same father, even though one's Greek and one is Persian, and they were given, let's say, jurisdiction, right? They were given like control over each land. The important part for you guys about this dream is that with these two women, though we have one who is in charge of Greece, one who is in charge of Persia, that what she watches in her dream is both of these women start quarreling with one another. And into the dream enters her son Xerxes, who basically, again, sort of, I'm making this very, very simple, but he basically bridles the two women and puts them on to his chariot. Now, this doesn't go well, right? As you guys can probably imagine, considering this is a dream that we have to analyze. This doesn't go well because the women start to basically buck like horses. That They've not really turned into horses. That's, again, this is getting really weird. They're bridled as if they are horses. They start to buck as if they are horses. And in fact, the women start to pull so far away from one another that it causes Xerxes to fall off of his chariot. And behind him is his father Darius, and Darius is looking on him and feeling massive, massive pity for him, right? And that's the dream, okay? There is no conclusion to it. That's the dream that she shares with the audience and with the chorus, and is like, I just needed to tell you all this terrifying thing. Atossa says that when she woke up from this dream, she was so rattled by it that she actually went to the altar of Apollo. She went to go wash herself off, literally just to bathe all of this bad juju from her. And as she's outside, she saw a bird omen, which we know are big things in ancient Greece and in the ancient world. And so she sees this bird omen of this hawk, that very long bird omen short, gets its talons into the head of an eagle. And she describes it as the eagle not fighting back and basically just offering itself up, right? So there's lots of fucking analysis for this. And that's what Atossa says, that she was so rattled by that. She was so rattled by the dream. Atossa's been through it this morning. Now, she says that either her son, Xerxes, is going to succeed or he's going to fail. But regardless of whatever it is that he does, when he comes back to Persia, when he comes back to Susa, he will rule as he did before. Obviously, the chorus hear all of this. They know this shit is not good. Okay, anybody listening to this knows this is not positive. There's a clear objective here. There's a clear what's going to happen. We've got this obvious foreboding. And the chorus choose to ignore it for now anyways, right? The chorus basically say that they can't really give her any sound advice about that, but that if she has any more anxieties, she should go and pray to the gods, she should go and consult seers, like all of those sorts of things. They give her that kind of advice. They also stress that she could pray to Darius if she really felt like she needed to. Obviously, Darius has passed over, and so therefore she could also pray to him and ask him to watch over their son, whatever it is that's going to help her get rid of all those anxieties, because they end their little speech by saying, but all of it should turn out well. Atossa thanks them for all of their advice, and she says that she's going to do all of that when she goes home. But since she's there, she might as well ask some geographical questions. Because why not? I mean, yeah, sure, Atossa, do your thing. First off, Atossa wants to know where Athens is, so the chorus tell her. And then when she follows up, they're really talking about, not only where Athens is geographically and what that means for it, but also how the city is run, like how a city that could be run by like multiple people, because that's not how Persia's run, right? Bear in mind, from the Persian Empire looking in on Greece, they would have been like, what the fuck is going on there? So Atossa's really trying to understand how they could be powerful enough to withstand an army as strong, as large as the Persians, right? That's also run by a singular person, that sort of thing. She even doesn't really get that. So that's the discussion that her and the chorus are having. And as they're having it, so about halfway through, the chorus then start noting that someone is approaching them, and so they should turn their attention that way. So everybody turns around to look, and the character that approaches is a messenger. So the chorus want to know if the, message that he brings is good or it's bad. And the messenger is very fucking blunt, you guys. Because the messenger just comes on stage and is like, right, it's bad news, okay? The expedition has been lost. Persia's flower has been cut. And that's what I have to say. This sends the chorus over the edge. Okay, the chorus cannot fathom how this has happened, right? They start questioning the messenger and they're like, how could we have lost? What is going on? How could this have happened? No, we couldn't have possibly lost. And the messenger is just explaining to them that, now Salamis, which is the battle that's just happened, that there are now lots of Persian corpses in Salamis, on Salamis, in the waters around there. It is not good. Surprisingly, though, although the chorus don't handle this well, Atossa handles it like a fucking boss. Okay, Atossa is only really worried about who has survived and who has actually died, right? She wants to know what to expect when the army, if there's any left, come back, right? So that's the thing that she says. She basically looks at the chorus and she says, look, the pain is out of our control. The loss, the mourning, all of that completely out of our control, in the hands of the gods. But what we should be focusing on is who are we going to welcome home, and who do we have to start getting used to saying goodbye to, really. I mean, I just paraphrased the shit out of that, but you guys know what I mean. The messenger lists off a bunch of men who are dead, right? So we do get a long list, like these generals, these people, all of this sort of stuff. But he does tell us Xerxes is still alive. So Atossa is thrilled by this news. That's what she was really worried about. So she's like, yay! Unfortunately, though, we do continue to get a long list of names. Okay, so Atossa kind of checks herself, even though she was really thrilled. She then starts to understand the gravity of this defeat. And she does go into like full lament mode, right? Where she has like basically a very long no, and wants to know how big the Greek army was in order to cause such problems for the Persians. The messenger tells us that actually if it was down to numbers alone, the Persians would have won. Because they had, and I did write down this number, they had 1,207 ships to their army. However, the Greeks only had 300. I'm pretty sure, wasn't it 10 times 30? Didn't write that down. Pretty sure it's 300. The point is, numbers alone, Persians should have won. He says that the only way you can figure that the Greeks won over the Persians is simply because the gods must have been on their side. Right, that is the only thing that he can accredit it to, because nothing else makes sense. Atossa's first reply to all of this information is to ask if at least the city of Athens was sacked, right? Because that's sort of where that initial conversation came from. And so she wants to know if the city itself fell to the Persians. And the messenger is like, yeah, that would be a no. Atossa, obviously very confused by this. She wants to know who made the first attack, she wants to know all the details, and so the messenger divulges into a little bit more detail for us and explains it, obviously, and most importantly, to Atossa herself. He starts off by saying that whatever it was that was in the Greek camp was obviously not human. And the reason why I wanted to stress that is because the Persians are telling the Persians that there's no way, due to the number discrepancy and due to how incredible the Persians are, there's no way the puny Greeks could have beat them. If it was human, it has to be divine. So he starts there by being like, look, it's got to be the gods. The gods are definitely on their side. This is fucking mental. So that's where we're starting with, right? We're not going to start with there are humans guarding the city. There are humans fighting. Something weird's going on there. It's got to be in the hands of the gods. Because the Greeks basically attacked in a way that the Persians were unexpecting of. Again, this is very, very long scene short. That the Greeks had an advantage. They show up and they really just bore down on the Persians super, super hard. And the messenger tells us that never have the Persians seen such a lack of numbers, such a high kill number, I guess we can say, than that day in particular, than during the specific battle. It was brutal. Obviously, Atossa still doesn't really get it, right? That's the point, right? And I want to make this clear that this is supposed to explain things in more and more and more detail. So we are going on this journey with Atossa to hear about this battle at Salamis. And basically, she can't understand how this happened and how they've lost so many numbers. And the messenger stresses to her that, yes, there were lots of men on the boats, there were lots of Persians on the boats, but something else that they had done was actually put a lot of the Persians on the shore of Salamis, because they thought that it was a shoo-in that they were going to win, right? With the amount of people that the Persians had versus the Greeks had, as I said, just numbers alone, they should have won. And so therefore, they had stationed a number of men on the coast of Salamis so that if any of the Greeks got away as they were all being demolished and all the boats were being demolished and they tried to swim to shore, then the Persians on the shore would kill the remaining Greeks, right? That was the plan. And unfortunately for the Persians, because the Greeks absolutely slaughtered them, that all these men on the shore also ended up dying. Because when the Greeks showed up, they were, throwing things at them, throwing stones at them, or trying to kill them with spears or whatever happened to be. Everybody, the point of this is everybody was gone. The Persians acted exactly how they should have done. They had the right numbers, they had put up a backup plan, everything, and it still fell through the cracks. In fact, the messenger stresses that the only way that this battle ended is when every single Persian fell. And it's when Xerxes heard this, supposedly, he ripped his shirt and he wailed in lament. I just thought that I would include that. Atossa has a really dramatic moment in response to this, where she looks up at the sky, where the gods are, and she goes, "You!" Like, really is is just having a field day, okay? She is not happy. She's really struggling with this, understandably. And so she turns again to the messenger after she does her whole little, not curse, that's a very strong word, Erica, but she has a go at the gods, is what I'll say. And she turns back to the messenger to ask what happened to the ships that maybe outran their doom, because clearly not everybody died. Again, the messenger started off by saying, the majority of people died. It was really fucking bad, and that's why this whole thing has happened. So she wants to know, the people who survived, how did they outrun such doom? The messenger does tell us that unfortunately for all of those generals or men who did manage to survive, what they did was they went onto land and they ran to a bunch of other cities and they were taken in by them and they were helped by them, right? So, they've gone to kind of where Turkey is now. They've gone to go and ask for help, to ask for food, to ask for water, whatever it is. But he stresses that a number of people actually died in this part of the battle as well, right? Because a lot of them died of thirst, they died of hunger on the way to these places. So even though a number of them, obviously died at sea, a number of them then died because they were stationed on land, and then a number of them escaped, a good chunk of those who did manage to escape did die, unfortunately, from thirst and from starvation on the way to safety. But the messenger doesn't want to continue talking about this, and he says that that's the reason why so many people should start mourning now, right? So he stresses that now is the time that everybody should start doing the traditional thing, should start honoring these men who sacrificed their lives in so many ways, right? Again, not just from the sea battle. And when he sort of says this, he then leaves the stage. The first thing the chorus does is exactly what Atossa just did, where there's a pause, and then they look up to the sky, and they go, "You!" And this backfires massively on the chorus, because Atossa turns around to them and is like, "Hey, remember how just a hot second ago you interpreted my dreams as being light and fluffy, and didn't you just say everything would be okay? And look at where we are now." She says just that she wants to go home, understandably. And she tells the chorus that if her son arrives when she's already gone, like if he arrives in this interim where she's not with them because she needs to go and fucking lie down, honestly, same Atossa. And so she says that if Xerxes arrives, that then the chorus should comfort him in her absence. And the chorus say, okay. Atossa gets on her chariot and she rides off stage. The chorus have an incredibly long choral ode, all about grief. That's the most important thing to take away from it. That we have them sing of how the gods now, these, mighty divinities, have actually shrouded Susa and Ecbatana, which is another big city in Persia during this period, in this cloud of grief, right? So they talk all about this. They sing all about this. It is horrible. It is full of grief. It is what people are feeling, the women and the children, the families that were left behind. Oh, it's just heartbreaking. And as they come to the end of this, Atossa re-enters the stage, but this time on foot. And she is now dressed in preparation for mourning. Atossa returns with her attendants, so like her ladies in waiting, and all of them are holding these big jars, and Atossa just stresses that, it's okay for people to be scared and to be anxious and all of this sort of stuff, and that's why she's returned ready for mourning, because this is the right thing to do, and this is the only thing that they can do, the things that are in their power now. And so what all the jars are, that she says that her women are holding, are all of these libations that they are going to offer in mourning to the dead. She says that as they sing and as they chant, whilst they pour out these libations, she will be praying and calling out to Darius in order to watch over those who are now passing over into their afterlife, shall we say. As Atossa and her women start doing this, the chorus leader announced that the chorus will help them, right? Because remember that there is sort of like a tomb on stage, right, to Darius. So the chorus say that they'll help, and they all start chanting. Atossa starts calling out directly to Darius, and as they're doing this, it's very long, just that you know, but as they're doing this, we start getting this ghost of Darius that comes up, right? Because they're calling on him, they want his advice, and the ghost of Darius is like, "Hello, I've been awakened." The ghost of Darius speaks to everybody on stage, and he says, "What are the troubles that oppress my people?" And obviously Atossa in response just starts sobbing, right? She does not like this opening question. I think she was probably assuming that he would be more comforting than anything. The chorus starts stressing how difficult it is, but that, their tongues are bound in all of this. And Darius is like, "Let's go, people. Let's make this choppy. I'm ready to start talking. I want to hear it. I asked for a reason." And Darius starts getting really frustrated with the chorus. And so even though Atossa is still sobbing and she's lamenting, he turns to her and he's like, someone's got to tell me what happened. Fill me in, Atossa. So Atossa keeps it plain and simple. And I wrote down her exact quote where she tells Darius, Persia's power, her prosperity are completely crushed. Right? And that line, by the way, if you guys want to know, is 1168 to 1170, right? So she keeps it very simple for Darius, just so that he knows the bare minimum, which is bye-bye Persia. Darius, shocked by this, he's like, how could this have happened? Who are the people that invaded Greece? Atossa says that it was Xerxes, and Darius says, God, he was always stubborn. And he wants to actually know how Xerxes managed to get everybody over to Greece, right? Over to Athens, over to this big city. He wants to know the logistics of it, right? So Atossa explains to him that he not only had foot soldiers go with him, but also they went by sea, right? So she stresses by land and by sea, that's how the men went. Which Darius is like, well, how the fuck did they get over the Hellespont, right? There's this huge bit of water. How did the foot soldiers do that? It makes sense that there are some ships, but how did they also have foot soldiers? And Atossa fills him in and is like, by the way, Xerxes made a bridge. And Darius freaks out, right? He's like, he did what? And Atossa's like, yeah, I know. When they get over the whole building of the bridge thing, which is obviously like super important to Darius, he wants to know all the details of this bridge, how it was constructed, which, to be fair, a lot of us, whenever we read this part of like the Persian Wars, everybody wants to know about this fucking bridge, right? It's a wild story, but regardless of that, he wants to know a lot about the details of this downfall of Persia. So we go back to the Battle of Salamis, and Atossa explains everything that we have already heard. Darius is really surprised to hear all of this, and he's really surprised to hear how Xerxes has reacted, how he's conducted himself, and he actually says that his son has reckless youth, and this is what's brought about Persia's downfall. I did write down reckless youth, right? Because I thought that was really interesting that Darius from the grave is even like, he's really frustrated because he says that when he was alive, when Darius was alive, he built this whole, what is now the Persian Empire up until that point, that he had done such a big job, which historically he had done such a big job with this, that he says that was all through his own hard work, right? And he worked really hard. He did what he had to do in order to make Persia what it was. And he feels that now all of the stuff that he's built has now just become spoils, right, for the enemy to come and take. And that is grinding this ghost's gears. Understand? I honestly, I get it. Darius continues and has a really long speech about this inheritance of the Persian Empire, of Susa in particular, of all of the incredible things that not only he has done, but also he goes back to Cyrus the Great and talks about all of that. And he really stresses how Xerxes has basically ruined it all. And he questions, not really questions, but he says that not that Xerxes has forgotten what he's taught him, but that Xerxes almost chose not to listen to what Darius had taught him about leading, about ruling, and about having such a great, expansive empire, right? That Xerxes clearly was not, in Darius's mind, the guy for the job that he thought he was. The chorus now butt into this conversation because Atossa did have some questions, by the way, for Darius, but again, we're summarizing. So the chorus come into it and they ask what they should be doing now, right? So like, what should Persia do? How are they going to come back from this? And Darius says something really interesting where he says that even if, they go to their allies, right? So they go to the Medes or they go to whoever it happens to go and find more warriors, he says that they still should not attack the Greeks. He's like, this is it. This is the end. We got to give it up because the earth is an ally to the Greeks. Now, very long speech from Darius short. He stresses that the reason why all of this should be the way that it is, why the earth is clearly on the Greek side, is that he just says that there are prophecies that have happened and all of every single prophecy he's ever heard about Persia is now coming true. Right, so he knows how this is going to end. He says that it's not like partially true, like all of them to fruition, deciding to come true. And so he knows how this is going to go. And even though, yes, there are a number of men that did survive the sea battle, he says then a number of men starved, a number of men, are dying of thirst. So even the land is not supporting Persia, right, in that way. So it's more symbolism, right, is what I'm trying to get at. That he basically says, and again, this is done in a very, very long way in the play, that he's saying no one is on Persia's side. This is a losing battle and we just need to cut it the fuck out. With all of this in mind, Darius ends this by turning to Atossa and stressing that she has to go and speak to Xerxes because Xerxes will only listen to her. So she has to pass on this information, be incredibly, incredibly calm, incredibly encouraging, incredibly comforting, and hopefully Xerxes will listen to his mother. And with that, Darius's ghost starts to fade. Obviously not in like actual special effects, right? This is still the theater in the ancient Greek world. But he says that he's starting to fade and that now he's done his time up on, the earth and he's going to go back to where his soul was. But I wanted to leave you guys with this last Darius thing with a quote directly from him. That he says that everybody that he's speaking to and everybody that they speak to, they should encourage everybody to enjoy their days of living, for wealth is useless to the dead. Right? Those are lines 1380 to 1382 of this particular translation. I won't lie to you guys, I did not check that Greek, but I really liked how that translator did it. So that's in the description below if you guys want to find that. But on that note, Darius then vanishes. Obviously, with all of that being said, Atossa is so overwhelmed, right? She's literally just filled her glass for the day, right? She is so stressed and she looks at the chorus and she's basically like, I'm gonna go home, I need to go and eat something, and after I do that and possibly take a nap, then I'll face my son. And on that note, she leaves. Atossa, very relatable character. This leaves the chorus on stage and they sing us another ode. And their ode is actually a really interesting one because obviously they're the old men of Susa and of, the Persian people. And so they sing of how they knew a time when they never had to worry like this because the Persian army was so strong, because the men would always return, that this is the first time that they've ever had to handle something like this, which is a really interesting, insight into the Persians and what possibly, historically speaking, they could have been thinking. Obviously, this is a play, but I really love this particular choral ode because they sing of all of these individual battles. They sing of how Darius did really great, how he led them so well. All of this sort of stuff is really brought to the forefront. And it just stresses how this is new territory for everybody involved. And as the chorus is singing this, Xerxes actually appears on stage, but he's hidden. Okay, so he appears and he's in this curtain drawn carriage. So he comes on and we can hear his voice initially, but we do not see him. From inside this chariot, we hear Xerxes' voice as he says that he has confronted this horrible doom and how he wishes that he had gone down with the rest of his army. Now the chorus then chant back, because this is all sort of chanting that they do back and forth. And the chorus stress that they mourn along with Xerxes, and the earth mourns with all of them for the lost soldiers. And as they say this, Xerxes appears on stage. So Xerxes pulls back the curtains and he appears on stage. And he is in full-on mourning, right? He's dressed in rags, he feels really bad, and he tells the chorus to look at him and to mourn alongside him. Now, in this back and forth between Xerxes and the chorus, we see a lot of guilt on Xerxes' part. He really stresses that he feels like he left behind so many men when he managed to live, and now obviously he's back in Persia, he's back in Susa. So many men didn't end up coming. He feels like he abandoned them, right? And he really wants everybody to lament along with him. He will be in permanent lament, right? Because he feels so bad. And the chorus throughout are encouraging him, basically, where they're saying, listen to all the people of the city, to all the people of the land, everybody's mourning with you. And Xerxes feels really guilty. They're like, yes, but you made it back and you're here to lead us. This is the kind of back and forth that we see between the chorus and between Xerxes, as this is the first time that we've seen him on stage. The last part of the play is Xerxes encouraging the chorus and the people to lament, right? He really cannot wrap his head around the idea, and neither can the chorus, that these men will not come back. Because remember, this is unfamiliar territory for the Persians, and he's really going through it, to be fair to Xerxes, right? He is really struggling, and he cannot fathom how this has happened. He cannot fathom that these men won't return back to their families. He can't fathom how everybody else is feeling, and he just wants everybody to continue to lament with him forever. I mean, he doesn't say forever, but that's really the intention here. Why am I smiling? This is horrible. This is tragic. This is the real realities of war, people, that are coming through at the end of this play. Xerxes says that he feels shame, and the image that we are left with is actually the chorus surrounding Xerxes and joining him in lament. They wail, they make gestures, and as they sort of circle around Xerxes, they then sort of circle around the stage, right? They then sort of start walking as this processional mourning and processional lament, and that is literally the end of the play. Everybody exits the stage. That's the image that the audience are left with. And it's this beautiful analysis. I think this whole play is such a beautiful way of looking. It's that little window into the enemy, again, quote unquote, side, and really presenting them as these people that the audience can relate to. And most importantly, I want to stress this, and I stress this in my context video, Aeschylus himself was a warrior, and is probably somebody, warrior, soldier is probably a better word, but he's a soldier, and so he would have fought in these wars, probably, right? This is all assumptions that we can make, but this was something that really hit home to him, and he was really trying to bridge that gap between the Persians and the Greeks through this play, and it is unbelievably beautiful. I know I laughed a lot during that, because it's inevitable. That's just what I do. But it is such a beautiful play with such incredible analysis. And I will be linking lots of analysis, articles, and things down in the description below. So if you want to know more about the Persians, definitely go and check that out. But thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching these videos and for continuing to engage with my content. It means the absolute world to me. So thank you guys so much, and we'll be seeing you next time with more videos here on MoAn Inc. So I'll see you guys then.